Hello, my loves. Continue to update new stories on Reddit, and don't forget if you like it, please subscribe and like it. Now let's start new stories. Story: My boyfriend, 25M, is not who I, 25F, thought he was. How do I move on from this? I don't even know where to start. I feel like my whole worldview has changed. First of all, I know that every year starts with my boyfriend is the most lovely person. And I thought the same. But just so you don't think I'm completely delusional, every person who has met my boyfriend or heard about some of the stuff he's done for me have loved him. He's usually very attentive, caring, plans nice surprises, emotionally supportive, affectionate, etc., etc. Genuinely felt like a book character written by a woman. My mom loves him too. It all started when he got demotivated and then very depressed because he wasn't doing well in his career. I was worried about him and our future TBH, so I was encouraging him to apply to jobs etc., to which he said he would, but still have very little motivation. Anyways, long story short is I was constantly reminding him and asking if he's been applying, and I guess he got stressed out because he basically lied to me and said he was applying to stuff when he didn't. He lied about this a few times over a couple of weeks. He knows it's wrong, so he's not justifying it, but he explained in his brain he thought by not disappointing me and saying he already did something would give him motivation to actually do it. Anyways, I thought this was very out of character, so I decided to forgive after a bit of arguing etc., but in the back of my head I felt like something was off and I couldn't trust him, so I dug through his phone, which for the past 10 years I've had access to. He shared all his pins and passwords to me. While digging, I found a conversation this happened 6 years ago with a friend who was a girl. They discussed some sexual stuff, not sexting, but more like I like this, and later things like, I would like to do this with my GF, or we're both switches. But she also divulges quite a lot of sexual stories. He doesn't react a lot to them. She goes, I've shared a lot of secrets, now it's your turn. And he shares that when he was young, way before he met me, he experienced a hand job from another guy. I've literally never heard this story, and I just feel very betrayed. I've had chats like these with female friends and gay guys, but I don't think it's ever something I've shared with a straight guy friend. 1:1. I get that he made the existence of me very plain, but just feels odd. I feel like boundaries were completely crossed in telling other people things that I don't know. Feels like emotional cheating. Anyway, I'm going to confront him and very likely leave. But I just want perspectives. Or like advice from people that have had something similar happen to them. I know it's 6 years ago, but I feel like I don't know him anymore. I'm so perplexed because this doesn't match with the person I thought I knew. At all shy, reserved, very loving, telling me he misses me every day, writes love letters, gets giddy when seeing me kind of person. How can you fake being so in love for the last 10 years? Any pearls of wisdom very greatly appreciated. Boyfriend of 10 years spoke about sexual topics not on a sexting way with a female friend. And spoke about a sexual encounter from before he met me that I didn't know about. I'm likely going to leave, but how do I deal with this? Any other perspectives? Story: How to tell if my 25F partner, 25M, is emotionally or verbally abusive. I am 25 years old and starting to think that my relationship with 25 years old my boyfriend of about 1 year is not just toxic but abusive. He's always been quick to anger and a little jealous, but recently he's said and done things that are making me question my perceptions of myself and the relationship. I called a female friend recently who I hadn't spoken to in months, and we spoke for about 30 to 40 minutes catching up. He acted weird on the phone call, and afterwards he exploded. He accused me of talking to her about other men and intentionally trying to cover the conversation. He said I locked the door to the bathroom, I was peeing. He said I turned the bedroom fan on so he couldn't hear. We turned the fan on to go to sleep, and it was nearly 10 p.m. He said I left the room to hide the conversation. He was already in bed and I was trying to be respectful because he wakes up 3 hours before me. He refused to listen to my explanation. The next day he apologized profusely over text, which is a pattern in our relationship. Outbursts followed by long apologies the next day. Today, I worked a 10-hour shift while he was at home. I did a 50-hour week as my boss was out sick. I get home and I'm talking to him while opening the fridge and he goes past me and I accidentally shut the door on his hand that has a blister on it. Although his hand was fine, he turns to me and screams, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" in my face. I apologized and said although I was looking, I wasn't really seeing as my brain is fried and I'm tired. He proceeded to go off and then was even angrier when I was upset that he screamed in my face. He refused to apologize for that. That argument then derailed despite me trying to end it multiple times because it was no longer productive. We were just going in loops. I tried to turn and watch TV and he stood in front of the TV. I recorded part of our conversation. We're in a one-party consent state, and in those two recordings, he called me a narcissist, a pathological liar, autistic, and an asshole. I want to upload those so people can hear his voice and the context because I'm really feeling insane right now, but I'm unsure if that's against this sub's rules. At one point, he realized I was recording and took my phone and threw it on the floor in the other room. I got up and got it, and he seemed to back off from that once I told him me recording was legal in this state and that if he took my phone again, I would consider myself to be in actual danger and would leave. I've been thinking about leaving him, but it's hard as we live together. Now, I'm worried that I actually need to figure something out and quickly because I'm worried this is going to derail. He claims to love me and that I mean the world to him, but I once told him I wanted to break up and I'll never forget his response: "You deserve whatever I do, honestly." My 25 years old boyfriend 25 years old, and I fight a lot, but I'm unsure if it's starting to become abusive. Story: my 20F girlfriend 20F is not responding, but I can't tell if she ghosted or something happened. Is there anything else I can do? Advice on moving on from this? What do you think happened? My girlfriend 20 years old has been radio silent for 3 weeks and I'm at the point of considering it a ghosting. But the suddenness of it has me so worried I find it impossible to just move on from her character. We matched on Tinder about 3 months ago, real romantic, and were only official for about a week before she disappeared. We had been going on weekly dates since we matched, most of these lasting close to 12 hours as we'd get lunch, go for a 4-mile walk, and talk. She brought me a flower she picked on almost every date and has been incredibly considerate and sweet. Our interests are very different, but that didn't hold us back as we could carry a conversation about anything and found things to do together we both enjoyed. She grew up in a small, rural town and comes from a homophobic family who she is not out to yet, as she has reason to suspect they may disown her and plans to wait a few more years. She had been hoping to get off work to visit family for the 4th. My last message before she disappeared was asking if she would be able to. I never received confirmation that she was, but I assumed that she did and was not responding due to travel and family, and initially that she had decided to extend her trip when the silence carried on through the weekend. No social media. A combination of her upbringing being largely analog and being a comp sci major giving her the ick towards social media. She's not on anything but Indeed for school, networking. I have attempted to add her on Indeed in case there is a phone-related reason we have lost contact, and at least if my connection is rejected I know she doesn't want to talk but is alive. The message has been pending for just under a week. I also sent a message on Tinder with my hashtag because we exchanged those in person, but she deleted the app and doesn't appear to have been on, and if her account is with her number and that changed she wouldn't have access to that either. She did not always text every day. I did not mind this as we had outstanding conversation in person and she showed her interest face to face rather than digitally. But this did leave sometimes a gap of a day, maybe 2, where I would not hear from her, even on her day off. And when she did text, it was usually for a few minutes and she'd be unreachable again for about 24 hours. This was probably my biggest discomfort with the relationship, which I had intended to discuss the next time we saw each other, and may be the reason that most heavily influences my belief she ghosted. I do not know her apt. There were at least 2 dates where we sat in my car for an hour, talking when I dropped her off, but she did not invite me up or tell me the for future reference. I interpreted this at the time as it being late, 10 p.m. 12, and her not trying to keep me as I always worked the next morning, not wishing to insinuate more by inviting me up. The last time I saw her I said if we were going to chat for an hour so often she'd have to invite me soon. BC the car was uncomfortable, but that I wasn't inviting myself up. She chuckled and said okay. She did not initiate hand-holding or the few kisses we had, but her face lit up when I asked to. When I asked if there was a reason she had not been initiating she said she did not want to make me uncomfortable, something I would attribute to a homophobic upbringing I can relate to but have personally much more overcome. We only became official on our last date, about 5 days before she disappeared. She has Android, my texts don't say delivered to any Android friends, but her phone still rings before voicemail when I call so I do not believe I am blocked. Which means calls and texts just asking if she was okay went through and were ignored. Kind of hard to believe she would do that, even if she did not want to speak with me. And if she doesn't want to speak with me, why am I not just blocked? I have Apple. Is there an indicator I've been blocked that I'm missing? She has had relationships before, at least two, so homophobia has not held her back in the past. She identifies as a lesbian and appears to have no shame or trepidation with it. I am concerned, however, if it came up while she was home for the 4th somehow, and if there was some sort of intervention, those can be bad. She had recently been diagnosed with a heart murmur, which a doctor just determined to be harmless, but I can't stop worrying something happened in relation to this. I asked her 4 to 5 dates in what she was looking for. The answer was a committed relationship. We had a laugh that we'd both attempted casual in the past, but did not have the capacity to date casually. She acknowledged that she may not have time for dates weekly when school started, but that she would focus on getting a car so she could more easily come to my side of town rather than bus or Uber BC. She felt bad. I was making the full commute and would drop her off at home after. What I gleaned from this is we had agreed on our intentions and were beginning to solidify future plans, intentions. As stated above, she brought me flowers, and she was first to pick up the check, which I reciprocated the next date, so she shouldn't have felt I was taking advantage. We were taking turns. Both I would consider strong indicators someone is invested because they are showing commitment through actions that are not required of them. We had been making plans for the Renaissance Fair, and she was planning her costume as well as the expense and how she could invest in something more pricey if she could also wear it in her regular rotation. I would consider this another sign of intending on at least a near future together because of how much thought she was putting into plans. I looked her up online for any obituaries. There were none, but the website I was forwarded to was Truthfinder, which notified me she was flagged as being on a government watch list. I was not looking for this information, but what? I wondered if this was related to the screening process for her military application, but according to the definition on the site, that shouldn't be the case. I'm not about to pay the website money for her information, so I do not know the details of the watch list, but an address with her hometown was attached to her name and phone number, so I'm fairly confident it is really her. I don't even know how this could be related other than making the disappearance around the time she was supposed to go home so much weirder. The site does say this does not indicate criminal activity, could be related to someone she knows, or just reasonable suspicion without any wrongdoing. We became official on our last date. On this date we talked about a number of things before starting a relationship, including her interest in joining the military, our relationships with our parents, communication, and exclusivity. When I inquired upon her interest in the military, and let her know the long distance required of the branch she was considering did not align with my lifestyle goals, I had been worried we might be at an impasse that would end our relationship. Instead she backpedaled that she was not fully decided yet and open to being swayed. Her mom was already convincing her not to. Discussing our relationships with our parents is when she confirmed she intends to tell her parents in the future, but not for a few years, and said she'd be willing to talk more about family at a later date, not dinner, understandably, but therefore indicating future opportunity to discuss. On the topic of communication, she admitted it came less naturally to her, whereas I have no issue bringing attention to topics which need to be discussed, even when I don't want to. I said I'd be okay with it if she felt more comfortable discussing things on a call or over text, to which she said no, she wanted to handle serious conversations in person. Finally, on the topic of exclusivity, this was after she had confirmed she wanted to be in a relationship with me. She was the one who said exclusivity would be a non-negotiator for her, which I agreed to. It's what I wanted as well. On our last date, she looked me in the eye and said she felt so secure in our relationship, she wasn't used to it, but she was very happy about it. The last time I heard from her, she gave me the dates she would be available for a trip we were planning to take together. I had messaged to ask if she really wanted to go and didn't feel pressured, as she'd missed texting one day. We texted back and forth the next, then she missed 2 more, but she responded that she definitely wanted to go. Her boss had not given her the time off she requested for our trip, but she gave me the days that would work for her with the intention to trade some shifts. My response to her was that I would hold off further planning until she had secured the shifts, then we could discuss hotels and packing. And lastly, an inquiring message as to whether she had been given the time off to visit family, which she never responded to, so I had assumed the answer was yes, and that was the reason for her sudden silence. After a week of no responses to a few messages and calls just asking to know she was okay, I accepted that, if she had not responded yet, more attempts would not help. I'm sure she isn't getting my messages for one reason or another. My last message can be summarized as, if she wishes to ghost I can respect that, I would however like to know she is okay, and would appreciate confirmation she wishes to terminate our relationship as we agreed to exclusivity. In case I do not hear from her, I gave her a date upon which I would be considering this a breakup. I have a brief message planned that I intend as my last correspondence upon that date summarized as, I'm taking this as a breakup as there is nothing more I can do. I'm sad as this meant a lot to me, and if she ever sees the message I would like to know that she is alright. I'm also leaving the door open as I do not wish to break up, I just don't know what more I can do. I don't want to bother her in case she did suddenly decide she wanted to go no contact. I truly just want to confirm that she is alright. It's hard to move on when I can't stop waiting, worrying I'll get a call from her in the hospital. The other night I had a nightmare about it. I know this will pass, but it's been awful trying to move on. I can typically see a ghosting coming and it doesn't faze me, I just move on and don't waste my time. I'm wishing she rejected me to my face so I could stop worrying. As of Monday I'll be taking it as a breakup, but it really doesn't feel like one so I feel weird about it. I'm doing okay by the way. I went on the trip by myself since I never heard from her, I got to see a bunch of cool stuff. I have a great support system which I've been utilizing. I'm keeping active and have a lot going well for me right now. I don't think there's any more I can do, just move on like I've begun to I guess. Story, future Fael, 56, keeps putting pressure on me, 32M, and my fiancé, F30, to get married sooner. How do I handle this? To start off, me and my future wife have been together for 3 years and we plan to do a wedding in Greece in 2026. The thing is that I want to save up for the wedding so I can pay for everything. Me and my partner don't agree with the way weddings are done in our country. You go to someone's wedding and give them an envelope with a large amount of cash and in return they will come to your wedding and give you an envelope of cash when your time will come. I completely hate this way of doing things, which is why I want a wedding in another country with few close friends and with no envelopes or gifts. Now the problem is that it will take me some time to raise the money needed and here is where problems start to come. My Phil keeps insisting that we should wed earlier and keeps asking my fiancé why are we taking so long. Also, he offered to pay for everything provided that we do the wedding in our own country or if we insist, to help us with the costs of a foreign wedding to which I refused for several reasons. The first reason is that he always likes to be in control of everything and by accepting we won't have any say in how the wedding is going to be organized. Secondly, I want to achieve something by myself and offer my partner a memorable experience and to which I'm 110% sure that my Phil won't agree with some of our mine choices. The latest thing that he has done and to which I feel has put some tensions between me and my partner is that he wants to take a trip to Asia in which he wants to go with his wife and his daughter but not with me because he stated that we are not married yet and that he would offer or take us on expensive trips if we were to be married. I feel like he is doing this on purpose to exert pressure on me and my partner. Another thing that my partner tends to agree with him and also started putting pressure on me, she usually tends to agree to what her parents say or get caught in the middle between me and them. Also for more context, I work a decent job in the IT sector and have a good enough income to afford the Greek wedding, the only problem is that we have to wait a bit. And no, I hate the idea of a bank loan. FIL putting pressure on me and my partner to marry earlier than we planned. I want to wait because I want to pay for the entire wedding by myself since I want to have things in a certain way and won't settle for less or something else. Phil keeps bugging my partner and has recently offered to take her and his wife on an expensive vacation to Asia, but not me since we are not married yet. Story, it's the 45th time within 2.5 months I started crying because I don't feel smart enough, imposter. Hey, me 30 years old, am dating someone 22 years old since 2.5 months. Yes, the age difference was unexpected, I look younger, he looks older, so we both thought we are 25 on 26. But that's not the problem here. He is very genuine, rational, smart, active in society etc. We met at some critical theory workshop in Berlin. I figured, he won some national competition in sociology and is studying politics and philosophy. When we are together, except these situations when I start overthinking and then crying, we have the best time in our life. We vibe a lot, have the same sense of humor, trust each other, prefer STH more than vanilla, and I feel very comfortable by his side. But there is this one thing, my therapists could not really help me with yet, so, he likes talking about philosophy and I learn a lot and love it. At the same time, when he says something and I don't have a smart answer, it already happened a few times that I started crying, fearing he would figure out sooner or later that I was not as knowledgeable as he was. More like average, but not a prodigy who reads as many books as he does, etc. I studied law, am doing my PhD and am very interested into philosophy and politics, but don't have so much time as to indulge super deep in it. I did have good grades, achieved quite some things, but BCPF childhood, which I apparently did not process completely yet. I think I only deserve love when successful and smart. When I cry, he is super kind and calms me down, saying I was smart and did not have to say anything. However, since it happened quite often now, he does say that he does not feel comfortable when it happens so often, which I totally get. I would question myself as well, if my partner was crying BC of me. Any advice on how to stop crying, regain my self-confidence? I am scared this will become a self-fulfilling prophecy and I will somehow fuck it up. Indeed, just today, when I cried again I said, maybe I need a partner who is less smart, which, obviously, hurt him a lot. That he communicated clearly, saying it was not cool. I tend to do these things to protect me and rather fuck it up myself than to let somebody dump me, which is very psycho, I know, and I am scared it happened in the first place. I think I can control myself in not saying something similar like that again, especially since I don't want no other, but about the crying, I am not sure. My partner is very knowledgeable in philosophy and, from time to time, passionately tells me something about this topic. I find that fascinating, but at the same time, I start overthinking, thinking I don't know as much as he does and he will break up with me once he finds out. Imposter. Story: I feel like my best friend, 21M, is jealous of my GF, 21F, and I don't know if I should keep being friends with him. Hello everyone, I am 21 years old, have a best friend 21 years old, and we have been friends since high school, so for about 5 years. He has gone to a different country, but he still visits pretty often, so we get to see each other every 2 to 3 months. My friend is gay, and I am a straight man. At the same time, I have a girlfriend 21 years old who I have been dating for 3 years. He doesn't really support our relationship because he thinks that since I started dating her we don't really spend time. Which isn't exactly true, but it did play some sort of role. We obviously used to spend more time together when we went to school every day and had nothing to do versus now what I have a relationship and I live with my GF and also I have a full-time job which takes most of my day. I never thought that he was jealous of my girlfriend, but lately when I took a deeper look into his behavior, I noticed that he is acting sort of strange. Firstly, he dislikes my girlfriend even though she did nothing to him. In fact, she even baked cinnamon rolls for him once when he came over to our flat. After that, he did not even say thank you to her, which sort of offended me. Secondly, when I told him that I went on a trip for my GF's birthday, he didn't seem happy for me at all. He did not ask me how it was, all he said was that he wanted to go on a trip with me and asked me why I didn't go with him instead. I honestly was surprised by his reaction because I wouldn't have reacted this way to my friend. Thirdly, he often makes remarks about my body and jokingly insinuates that I should break up with my GF. When I confronted him about all of this, he said that he has no problem with my GF, but he thinks that I don't spend enough time with him. I don't know what to think of these, but he is the only friend I have in the city, which makes me feel even more alone. I feel like he doesn't value me as a friend and he has weird motives towards me. My best friend of 5 years is acting strange towards me and my relationship and seems like he is jealous of my girlfriend. Story: I'm starting to catch feelings for my boyfriend's friend. My boyfriend, who is 12 years older than me, doesn't really work hard for us. He just works for his father's business and go in whenever while I work at a restaurant serving, and his best friend works hard, so I feel like he would make a great partner. Me 20 years old and my boyfriend 32 years old have been together for almost a year now. We do get a lot of comments about our age difference, which is a little bigger than I'd prefer, but we are both very traditional. Where I live it's hard to find a guy that's trad, so I instantly fell for him. At first we had a lot of fun and I wasn't really staying with him all that often. I live an hour away, so it was kinda hard to make time for staying with him with my work schedule and such. My hours got cut at my part-time job, so as I've been looking for a new job I've been staying with him a lot more. I ended up getting a serving job in his town so I could spend more time with him because he truly does have a lot going on with his father being sick and some court situation. Ever since I started staying with him I really got to see the real him. His father owns the business he works for, so he does as he pleases pretty much. We sometimes won't roll out of bed and start our days till 1 p.m. on a weekday. It sorta put a bad taste in my mouth because I told him he could leave me here alone and that it was totally okay, I'd clean up the house for him. He just doesn't work at all whenever I'm here and he doesn't do much around the house, which would be okay if he was working, but he just sorta runs around all day doing little stuff. Although, his dad is in a wheelchair and does need some assistance with certain things, but it doesn't take all day, and his father even said, "When will you start working regularly again?" We've been hanging out with one of his good friends a lot recently who does blue-collar work and has been a Marine before. The more we see him, the more my heart sort of grows this feeling towards him. I would never cheat, but knowing he works hard long hours is a green flag in my eyes, and I feel with my traditional beliefs that he would be a great father and husband willing to work for his family and care for them. He is super respectful and has a big heart. I love my boyfriend now, but in a way he is very feminine, he doesn't really work much, and he also is very obsessed with how he looks, and not in a good way. As I'm at my serving job there for hours on end, I'll check his location and he will still be at the house. I've met a lot of guys who make sure they look presentable, but he is always primping in every single mirror he passes. He will give me his phone and ask me to take photos of him, and I don't mind doing it, but I just feel like on my heart this isn't who I should start my family with because he's so worried about him and never me or others, it's him all the time. He is selfish at times and I'm trying to bring him back down to earth, but I'm starting to give up. I feel terrible because every time we see his friend I can't help but imagine what it would be like with him. He is a very sweet and caring humble guy. I just am wondering, should I stop bringing myself around him when he is with my boyfriend? Or should I tell my boyfriend he doesn't seem manly enough for me? I am worried about hurting his feelings. Story: my 27M partner, 26F, keeps threatening our relationship and lashing out. How do we address it? I am 27 years old, have been with my partner 26 years old for over a year now. The first time we met, we clicked instantly. We have the same sense of humor, have the same hobbies, and we share similar life goals. She is enthusiastic, wholesome, charismatic, the list could go on. I love her dearly, and she makes me happier than anyone else ever has. My parents and friends love her too. Everyone in my life is supportive of our relationship and are happy for us. In all honesty, I am the happiest version of myself. But the last 6 months have been going downhill. We have been getting into arguments. The topics of the arguments are normal and nothing too serious, but the issue lies in how we argue. When we have an argument, she loses her temper. She loses track of the goal and she stops being constructive and cooperative with me. She lashes out at me and says things in the heat of the moment just to harm me or our relationship. Her lashing out isn't limited to when we fight either. She has anxiety and panics sometimes. For example, we were late to the airport recently and she started getting nervous, and while I wasn't doing anything wrong or anything to upset her, it's unavoidable for me to be in the firing line when she lashes out because she's panicked. In the last 6 months, when we've had arguments, there have been a handful of times when she's threatened our relationship. I don't believe she threatens our relationship in a manipulative or controlling way in order to get what she wants. I believe she does it because she goes into self-destruct mode. No matter the reason, I told her that is unacceptable. I seriously talked to her about this back in March and told her how it makes me feel and that she can't do it. She agreed at the time. However, she threatened the relationship again in May. After then, we had a more serious conversation about how I would have no choice but to break up with her if she kept threatening our relationship. I also said she needs to stop lashing out at me. I explained my reasoning to her, and she totally agreed and apologized after she had calmed down. However, lo and behold, last weekend, she threatened our relationship again. Now, I don't know what to do. I told her I would break up with her if she did it again. What kind of precedent would I set if I didn't follow through? I love her so much, but logically I don't see how I can spend my life with someone who acts like this. I don't think we can disagree in a mature manner. I feel like I'm constantly in the firing line. I feel like we are not a team. For all the laughter, joy and happiness we have together, it's always in the moment. I recognize I might be in denial about the future, and that I'm clinging on the happy moments and dissociating from the bad moments. Our relationship feels volatile and insecure. I don't know how I can build a future with someone who makes me feel like we're on the rocks every couple of months. I've also now lost my optimism and have no faith that she will change. She brings me happiness, but she doesn't bring me peace and security. I don't see how I can build a future with someone without peace and security. But, having said all of this, 90% of the time when we're not fighting, I am the happiest version of myself. That is because of her, and it breaks my heart having to leave her. Surely, turning your back on someone you love and someone that makes you happy can't be the answer. I'm stunned with indecision at the moment. Does anyone know how to address this in a healthy way? I'd really appreciate any advice. I told my partner we would break up if she threatened our relationship again. Now she has. I don't want to break up. Story I, 18F, don't know what to do of my relationship with my GF, 18F, due to some shady behavior. I, 18 years old, don't know what to do about my relationship with my girlfriend, 18 years old, of some shady behavior. I am 18 years old, recently started dating my best friend, now girlfriend, also 18 years old. Previously, we had been together for around 6 months before going official. I do have to say those months were a little rocky, but eventually we got it together. Anyways, she's been acting strange for a while now, and I don't know what to do about it. When summer break started, I was really scared we wouldn't get to see each other, a lot of family vacation plans, and the fact that we live a bit far away from each other. And it's been like that. I did get to see her about a week and a half ago. We got a call that my grandfather had passed away and we had to cut the vacation early in order to go back to my city for the funeral. I asked her if she could go since I really didn't feel like going alone. She lives in the same city. She kind of ignored the proposition and kept talking about other stuff. I kinda wish she had said something. It doesn't matter if it was a no, I would have just liked to get an answer. The next day, I asked her if she wanted to hang out, and we got together at a mall. The original plan was to get something to eat and spend the afternoon together. When we arrived, she decided to go to the cinema instead, and I agreed. Everything was going fine, but when I asked her at what hour should my parents come to pick me up, she said that as soon as the movie ended, a couple of hours before we had originally planned. I thought she maybe had something to do later, but she said no. I lied and told her they couldn't pick me up until the hour we had agreed on. I did this BC, I wanted to spend as much time as I could with her. She said okay, but I could tell it wasn't a good okay. She tried using as an excuse that I would have to spend time with her mom since she was at the mall, but I said I didn't have a problem with that. We ate with her mom and I engaged a conversation with her, but my girlfriend wasn't. At one point, her mom asked me if I wanted to go on a trip with them to a nearby town, and as I was asking about the dates and stuff, my girlfriend interrupted and said no, she can't go, she's gonna be away from town. Which I mean is true, but it just felt wrong the way she said it. The rest of the date was like this, me talking with her mom, her being silent, and eventually I got home. She didn't even held my hand in the whole day, let alone kiss me or hug me. Every time I tried to, she just kinda separated from me as soon as she could. Ever since, she has barely spoken to me. I ended up retaking the vacation, and prioritized staying in contact with her. But she will take days to respond, and when she does it's quite dry, or just a sticker. I know she's available BC, I can see her active on other apps, and I normally don't have a problem with people taking their time to respond, but I feel like days is a little extreme. I thought maybe she was busy, so I asked her and she responded with not at all. Recently, I was scrolling on TikTok and on my FYP appeared a video she had reposted. Out of curiosity, I went on to check her reposts and it kinda surprised me what I found. She's obsessed with this reggaeton artist and a lot of the reposts were of her. I didn't really care about those. The thing is, a lot of her reposts are about really pretty girls, far more pretty than me, just showing their faces or lip syncing to a random song. To be honest, I'm very insecure about the way I look, so that's that. But my breaking point was when I found a video of some music lyrics. They said something along the lines of, do I really love them, or am I just bored, and it honestly broke my heart into pieces. I started crying and stuff. I asked her about it and she just said it was her favorite part of the song. After that, I spoke to a friend about how I felt. At first, I didn't want to do so since we're both in the same friend group and I didn't want to start drama, but I just had to share my feelings and concerns with someone. As we were talking, she reminded me of a lot of stuff that I had let slip, but now they seem so relevant I wish I hadn't. Going back a few months when we were first going out, we were not GFS then, the kind of relationship we were perusing was a bit unclear. I have to admit at that time I messed around with other people, but it was only physical, not a single romantic thing. Every time I did I told her, not in a braggy way, I just wanted her to know that I did, and I would rather tell her myself than someone else telling her. One day she told me this actually bothered her, since she was looking for a serious, closed relationship, and she asked me for time off in order to gather her thoughts. I gave it to her, and after a while we decided we both wanted a serious closed relationship, and I've never since done anything with anyone. I feel ashamed of messing around like that. I was going through some stuff, but I know it's not an excuse. After we agreed on that, she started acting a bit shady. She kept her phone close to her at all times. She has one of these screen protectors that doesn't let you see the screen if you're far or at some angles, and every time she picked her phone up, It was clear she placed it at does angles in order for me to not see. When we were watching TikToks or something, she would slide up the notifications really quickly as soon as they popped, and eventually put her phone on sleep mode. One day, a mutual friend told me she was talking with this girl she met on a volleyball match. She plays volleyball, let's call her Val, but she didn't know if she was just casually talking or if it was more than that. Some information you need to know at this point is that she's an asexual, not interested in anything sex-related at all. She's grossed out by it. My friend told me to keep an eye out for Ball, since my girlfriend has cheated in previous relationships. I honestly didn't think much of it, because I trust her or I did at this point. After some days, while hanging with our friend group, she mentioned she was talking with this girl, let's call her Ash. About a year ago, Ash and I had some sort of situationship for a little time, but I ended up leaving because she hurt me a bunch. At that time my girlfriend kinda knew Ash, and they would text a bit. Literally like 2 weeks after Ash and I stopped going out, my girlfriend and Ash kissed, and they had some weird thing where like it was a joke and stuff, but my girlfriend started liking her. Quick reminder, this was about a year ago. Coming back to the conversation with my friends, it made me kinda mad, and really insecure, but I let it slide cause I don't have the right to tell her who she can speak to. A week from this, one of my friends told me I should really do something about it because the way they were talking didn't seem to be in a friend way anymore. That day I had a whole anxiety attack and decided to talk with her about it. In this talk, I told her how I felt insecure and stuff, but I didn't tell her to stop talking to her. I told her if she wanted to keep talking with Ash it was fine, but if at any point she wanted to pursue some relationship with her, I preferred she told me and not cheat on me. She said she wasn't gonna speak to her anymore, but here's some details of the convo I feel are important. Firstly, she told me that one day she went to eat with Val, and that Val brought her flowers. She said something along the lines of she probably did it because my birthday was a week ago and I didn't think much of it. The thing that really bothered me though, my GF jokingly talked of some texts that Ash had sent her. The one that hurt me the most was one where Ash told her blah blah blah, and after that I'm giving you the best kiss of your life. I was like, straight face. So I asked her what had she responded. She told me I told her okay. I mean, she's the type of person that responds okay to absolutely everything, but that just felt out of place. Should I talk to her and tell her how I feel, and if so, what should I tell her? Should I just end things now? Are the things I mentioned something I should keep an eye on? Am I overreacting? Do I keep trusting her? It's just my anxiety overthinking. Am I going insane? So yeah, that's the whole thing. I don't know what to do. I'm worried that she's starting to talk with someone else, or that she's lost interest in me. I don't know if I should confront her. At the same time I feel like I may be overreacting. I know this is some dumb high school drama, but I'd really appreciate if someone shares some advice, or some objective POV. I'm sorry if the post is messy. I tried my best to explain everything. I am 18 years old, recently started dating 18 years old my best friend, and while our relationship had a rocky start, things have been going well until recently. She's been acting distant and uninterested, especially during our recent meetup where she avoided physical contact and cut our time short. She's been slow to respond to my messages despite being active on social media, and her TikTok reposts, particularly one questioning if she really loves me, have made me feel insecure. Additionally, she's been secretive with her phone and had concerning interactions with other girls. I'm unsure if I should talk to her about my feelings and things, or if I'm overreacting. Story: How to bond with my boyfriend's 32M friends, including his ex, without letting it affect our relationship. My boyfriend, 32 years old, and I am 29 years old, have been together for about a year and recently moved in together. He's been connecting with his friends after a year and a half of distancing due to mental health issues. One of his friends is his ex-girlfriend, who had a toxic end to their relationship. She recently sent him an emotional email, and I suspect she might still have feelings for him, which makes me uncomfortable. He reassured me there's nothing to worry about, but I want advice on how to bond with his friends and navigate this situation without letting it affect our relationship. I'm 29 years old and my boyfriend is 32 years old. We started to date sometime around this month last year. Found each other on a South Asian dating app. We had a fair share of ups and few downs, but we love each other to bits. Loyal to each other, and we want to start a life together. We recently moved in together as well, and our parents are supportive of this. My boyfriend was not doing okay mentally for quite some time and distanced himself from his friends for about a year and a half. Completely absent without leave. They tried reaching out but gave him space. One of the persons from the friend group was his ex-girlfriend. They dated for about 2 years. It got really toxic towards the end from what he told me, since she started to force him into marriage very early on during the relationship as she was 3 to 4 years older to him. Although he liked her, he wasn't ready for a lifetime commitment, especially if it was that forced. He tried to tell her, but she never really understood, would also sometimes cry about her ex whilst living with him. She couldn't secure a job, so no financial support to pay rent, so she asked to live with him even after he decided to part ways with her. He agreed since it was a tough time for everyone. Some forms of intimacy continued, but he expressed the discomfort he was facing that this was happening and that it's not good for either of their mental state if they decided to part ways. She then moved out, but reached out to him to give it another chance, and this time with no pressure of marriage. Skip, she now is married to a dude who she found through a dating app. We also recently met his friends, after he broke 1 year of long-lost silence with them. Everyone's extremely happy to see him and angry for ghosting. Basically everyone expressed happiness because they were meeting me for the first time, but I didn't see any kind of emotions from his ex-GF who was also present there with her husband. She only spoke about food with me, didn't try to get to know me at all. She just asked him how he was. Basically very minimal talks and emotions. Apparently, just a year back, she sent him another huge email, expressing how she terribly missed him, how she missed his laughter and late-night talks, missed having him in his life. That he should stop ghosting her and talk and still be great best friends with her, how they used to be. I can't help but think that she still has feelings for him, and that is somehow not sitting very well with me. Especially now that we'll be hanging out with the gang often. I don't want to let this affect anything because he really needs his friends, and so do I need this social connection. I have no complaints about my BF. He's the greenest flag out there. He is extremely honest about everything, and I expressed this to him. He saw where I was coming from and rest assured me that we have no control over this and to not let this affect me. I will try to heed to that, but I just want to know if I'm crazy to think this about her. Story: How do I, F32, communicate to my best friend, F32, that her career goals are becoming an obstacle in our friendship? Hello everyone, I am in a kind of pickle with one of my very dear friends. She is very nice, talkative and social, but very career-driven, which is a good thing, and I have been pushing her to do more with her life. She has been taking care of her sick dad for years and didn't go out much. I met 2.5 years ago and her dad unfortunately passed away in April. Since I met her, she started working a job to have more of a purpose, and then she got a second one since she felt like one wasn't enough, both government jobs, but still at junior level. Even last year we didn't do like a weekly hangout, more like once a month and a half kind of meet to do a catch-up of our lives. But since the beginning of the year we meet up just twice, once in January on my birthday and then unfortunately when her father passed. I have been trying to reach out every other week to check up on her and if possible meet up, but she just takes on every possible chore that her job gives her voluntarily, even if we have plans to get up the ladder faster by doing more than her job description. This was even before her father passed. The pickle is that when sometimes friends from outside the country or relatives come to our city, she makes time for them, but for me it feels like I have become a burden and she doesn't want to meet. I brought it up with her once after my birthday and she did tell me that she wants to focus more on work since she hasn't been able to due to her father's illness, and really cares about me and considers me like family, but every attempt to hang out seems to be shut down because of work. We sometimes make plans and then she doesn't follow up with a meeting hour, so I text her. She then says that she is working so she cannot make it like today. She more often than not doesn't reach out to inform me about the cancelled plans. She's a great friend to me and I do care about her, so I was wondering how do I bring it up to her to meet up a little more often, still not weekly due to her work, but maybe once at every 2 months max since my feelings are getting hurt by this constant rejection, poor planning on her part. My best friend, who is very career focused at the moment, doesn't make any time for a meetup, cancels plans without telling me most of the time. How do I bring it up to her that this is hurting my feelings and our friendship? Story: Thinking of stepping away from a 5-year friendship after she let her boyfriend come between us. My 30 years old friend Alice, 28 years old, and I initially bonded over shared trauma. Last year I stopped drinking, smoking due to the impact on my mental health. I'll have the occasional drink or edible, but my social life no longer revolves around getting intoxicated. Alice still binge drinks socially, gets high every day. When I turn down her offers to smoke or drink, she is visibly disappointed, repeatedly asking if I'm sure. Although my sobriety isn't a problem with my other friends, I sometimes cave to pressure from her. Recently, I hosted Alice and her partner David for dinner. I texted her a few days prior explaining I was dealing with some family issues, not in the right headspace to entertain, suggesting we go out to eat instead. She talked me into hosting anyway, saying how excited she was, promising to make it stress-free for me. Spoiler alert, it was not stress-free at all. My partner had to leave early, so the three of us hung out in my living room afterwards. Despite my grief over said family troubles, I tried to put on a brave face. Alice produced a joint, I accepted, hoping it might relax me. For the next 30 minutes, I could feel myself talking too much about our upcoming trip for my 30th. David, who is very shy, didn't say much. At one point he returned from the bathroom saying he felt ill, was going home. I offered him my bedroom to lie down, but he insisted on leaving. Alice stayed and we went out dancing. 2 days later, Alice revealed David was hurt I had ignored him, asked what I had against him. I was confused because I recalled interacting with David that night. I told her the truth, that I hadn't meant to snub him. If I was less than socially adept, it was due to the weed. She kept repeating that I had ignored him. I asked for examples, but all she could say was that the conversation wasn't inclusive of him. I asked why she didn't do more to include him in the conversation then. She got upset, said I was trying to minimize my behavior and evade accountability. For the sake of our friendship, I agreed to apologize to him directly. She told me not to, as he wasn't ready. I was confused, but left it alone. She spent my birthday trip getting wasted at every opportunity. In a moment of sobriety, she again pressed me to come clean about why I ignored David. I got upset because I'd already told her the truth. She dropped it. The next day she gave me the silent treatment, then bought a bottle of tequila to drink on an empty stomach, while on psych meds. I confronted her. Cue the same argument. I decided to leave, enjoy the rest of my trip solo. I accepted her apology but expressed concerns about her drinking, which offended her. Since then we've had other conflicts that have left me emotionally exhausted. I've had to fight tooth, nail to assert my boundaries. After our latest fight, she is eager to mend things, but I'm starting to think this friendship isn't healthy. I hate to throw away 5 years of friendship, but I feel I need to protect my peace. After my best friend accused me of ignoring her boyfriend, subsequently ruined my 30th birthday trip, I am having trouble trusting her, think it may be time to step away from the friendship altogether. Story, I, F, 30, don't know how to cope with my boyfriend, M, 41, of 2 years and his inability to grasp reality. I'm 30 years old, struggling to cope with what I believe is my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend's, 41 years old, lack of a full sense of reality. To provide some context, this all started about 2 years ago, 3 months after we started dating, when he had an episode of acute psychosis and committed himself under the Baker Act. He was afraid of people breaking in the windows and thought someone had broken into his roommate's room, so he broke down his roommate's door. Since then, he has been functioning relatively well and appears to be of sound mind in casual conversations. However, he has occasionally mentioned that he still sees shadow beings but has learned to live with them. He doesn't want to discuss this further because he fears being labeled crazy. He also reaches conclusions that make no sense and refuses to listen to me or accept any evidence that contradicts his beliefs. The most notable and persistent example is his belief that I supply weed to the local dealer I have bought small amounts from before. Despite having no reason to think this and me offering proof and even sharing my GPS location, he refuses to believe me. He doesn't believe almost anything I say, which is stressful and odd. When I was recently in the hospital, he didn't believe what I told him the doctor said either. I'm fed up with being treated this way and constantly being accused of lying. I've told him to stay away multiple times, which is why I referred to him as my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend. However, he shows up anyway, acting as if it's a normal day. If I tell him to leave, he refuses and just sits on the couch, knowing I can't physically make him leave. Recently, he's been talking about missing his family out of state. I've encouraged him to go be with them, as it seems he takes out a lot of his negative emotions on me and might be happier there. But he responds that he'll do what he wants, either staying or going, and won't be chased off by me. I really don't know how to cope with any of this. I'm 30 years old, struggling with my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend's, 41 years old, disconnection from reality. After an episode of acute psychosis 2 years ago, he still sees shadow beings and holds irrational beliefs, like thinking I supply weed to a local dealer. He refuses to believe anything I say, even about my recent hospital visit. Despite telling him to stay away, he shows up and refuses to leave. He misses his out-of-state family, and I've encouraged him to go, but he insists on doing what he wants and won't be chased off. I don't know how to cope with this situation. I neglected to mention that his mother has been diagnosed as bipolar, so I often wonder if any of this behavior from him are symptoms of bipolar. I have attempted to bring this up to him, but he shuts me down and won't even consider the possibility. Story: my husband told me he also loves someone else. My husband, Grant, 33 male, and I, 30 female, have been together for 12 years, married 3. We originally were living in my home state but moved to his after his parents' health started to take a decline. We've been living here for several years now. In that time I met a girl, 26 female, at work about 3 years into us moving, and after bringing her around me, my husband and her were all friends. We had a period where we didn't talk with her for maybe 2 years due to issues in our relationship with how my work was going, and her with a toxic friend group. TBF, we should have stayed and helped her out, but my husband and I were having a tough time barely seeing each other. Eventually we reconnected at the beginning of the year, and we would bring her out of her house to hang out and let her decompress from home life. A few months ago I noticed Grant was a lot more silent than normal, barely texting when we were at work and being somewhat physically distant. I eventually asked him what was wrong, and he said he was going through some mental issues. We both are diagnosed depressed, so I thought it stemmed from that. We made up, but there's still a very subtle hint of tension. When hanging or chatting in person, Grant is reserved, not as much in chat but definitely in person. I noticed in our friend chat he was the one more likely to initiate conversation than when it was just us, and I thought he was just trying to help keep her occupied. He initiated hangouts, which was weird because we were both home buddies. It started to nag at me when we would all hang out, and he would buy things for her too. I'm the one in the friend work group that people go to for advice, so I tend to pick up on things more than others, and about a month ago it sort of dawned on me that there was more than friendship there, at least from him. Recently, Grant was even more in his thoughts, and it was concerning me. I eventually got him to start talking, and at first he was very vague, and kept insisting he loved me. I didn't doubt that, but I had to guess he had feelings for someone, and guess again it was our friend. My heart sank when he acknowledged it, because it seemed like at first he couldn't admit it to himself. He eventually told me that he sort of figured it out when I confronted him about the distance, and had been battling with himself on how to tell me. He did insist he did not love me less, but loves her the same as me. I'll be honest, I'm probably still in shock and I'm not sure how to process. I feel like I should have been mad when he told me, but I can't bring myself to be. I'm not mad at her because she doesn't know. She's also in a relationship of her own and has never really expressed interest in anybody but the person she's with. And I understand people can love differently and the same for different people. We both just didn't think we would have to deal with this. I'm just not sure how to proceed. This man is the love of my life, and I don't think I can feel the same way I do for him as someone else. Leaving him isn't an option for me. I just need a way to navigate this. Story: I, at 28F, have been seeing my ex, 33M, and don't know if I should break it off or try to fix things. Ex, 38 years old, and I am 28 years old, were in a long-term relationship that was majorly toxic. Both parties contributed to constant fighting, abusive threats, emotional manipulation, psychological abuse, cheating, etc. throughout the duration of this relationship. Before you write this story off and make the obvious comment that this relationship is unhealthy, just hear me out and put yourself in my shoes. I really love this man and in a lot of ways will always love this man. However, after years of putting up with toxicity and selfishness from him, I had finally had enough. Long story short, we moved out on our own and parted ways, except we never actually stopped talking or seeing each other. We go through phases where everything is wonderful and then I'll find out that he's been looking for new connections on dating apps. When this happens, I tend to wander off and start talking to new people as well. Both of us act like this is unacceptable behavior even though we are not technically in an exclusive relationship. He will tell me how much he loves me, and then when we spend time together it seems like all we do is bicker or make jabs at each other. On top of that, there hasn't been any physical intimacy in weeks and he is pushing and pressuring me into it. I feel uncomfortable with this, but he makes a very fair claim that his physical intimacy is an important factor for him. It's clear that the correct answer is to break up and go no contact, but for some reason I just can't seem to do it. I clearly love him very much even if I'm not completely emotionally invested in the relationship right now, and we don't seem to be meeting one another's needs. I also don't trust his words because they don't seem to always match his actions. I truly don't know what to do or how to get through this. We have been terrible to one another and I feel this immense guilt in both leaving and staying. My friends and family can't stand him and vice versa. Does any of this stand a chance? I feel insane even asking this, but at the end of the day I love this man. Any advice, words of wisdom or commisery is welcomed. Ex and I had a toxic relationship but can't stop seeing each other. He ruined the relationship and I ruined the breakup. I feel like I'm either stuck in a cycle of abuse or that maybe I am the abuser. Story: should I break up with my girlfriend? Hey, so this is complicated, but I will try to keep it simple. I am 27 years old and about 3 months ago I met 27 years old a girl and we hit it off right away. For some background, she is one of the first real relationships I ever had and I am used to being alone and mostly just keeping to myself. I live with my mom and enjoy video games, anime, and all things nerdy, so I'm that type of guy. Needless to say, this is all new to me, and she also has 2 kids and an ex-husband, all of which she was upfront with me about. For the first few months everything was amazing, especially the S word. We were so passionate and I grew to really care for her and her kids, who in retrospect I may have met too early on. Anyway, I got sick recently and she has been going through a lot too planning this party for her and her family. She texted me today saying that she wanted space and is going through a lot, and I assumed that meant I could get out of driving the hour and a half to her house to go to the family party, and sadly that made me happy. The reason I say sadly that made me happy is because I feel guilty and bad that I was happy I had a chance to bail on that. Anyway, we had a long conversation tonight and I kinda told her I feel like we are rushing and I'm not ready for the commitment of everything due to some of the stuff I said in the first paragraph, how I am used to being a loner homebody. But she has been nothing but amazing and nice to me and even helped me come out of my shell a bit. Even still, I can't help but think that eventually I will want to break up because someday she will want to move in together and have me take a big responsibility role with the kids, and I don't know if I will ever be ready for it. I expressed the exact paragraph above pretty much word for word to her, and she will says she wants to stay together and to not worry about the future and live in the moment. I tried to get her to break up with me, I guess, by making it clear I wasn't sure if we were going to last forever and wasn't ready for a long-term commitment. She has kids and other drama. She instead said she loves me and wants us to work out, making me think she is a prize and it would be selfish and I would regret it if we broke up because the only reason I want to is just so I can go back to gaming all the time and doing whatever the hell I want. And I don't think that's a good enough reason because overall she really does care about me, and I know for a fact a girl like that is hard to find because she is amazing, so I may regret it later if I end things. Story: friend didn't invite me to his wedding. My 30 years old friend, 29 years old, got married last month. He hadn't really shared much in terms of his wedding plans with me and I assumed was having a low-key event with just family, which is why I hadn't been invited and I was fine with that. Until he sent me a text apologizing for not inviting me and that the event was for family and friends only. His reasoning was that he couldn't invite me because then by extension he'd have to invite the rest of the community that we associate with. I told him family and friends only. Got it. We are Bengali and there is a large Bengali community where we live, but neither of us are really involved in the community. The only real participation is attending a funeral of a community member. I thought that was a weak, flimsy excuse considering our minimal involvement with the community, And then I heard from a mutual friend that a few community members were actually invited and attended, as his father is a big member of the community. In addition, some of the other friends he invited are those he met not too long ago, 1 to 2 years, versus knowing me for 20 years. As a grown man, I'm a bit ashamed to say that this hurt me quite a lot. I thought we were super close since we talk on a weekly basis, hang out often, and have been friends for 20 years. I have a small family and very few friends. I considered him one of my closest friends, and he would always tell me things like, "I know you have a small family, but think of me and my family as your family." I feel like he could have invited me privately if he was worried about having to invite the community. Which he ended up doing anyway by inviting some members. Funnily enough, some community members were surprised that I wasn't there, and I told them I wasn't invited. My family was also hurt and offended by this situation and know his family very well. Friend still texts me on a weekly basis like nothing happened since we have many common interests. I hardly reply, hoping for some advice on how to go about things. My close friend didn't invite me parents to his wedding but invited other friends and other community members. Bye and see you again in the next videos and stories.